Hello and welcome to another HistorySpeak.com podcast. My name is Randy Jaye. This is one of a series of podcasts that are exploring Villainy Among Us. This particular podcast is episode number 9, and it features serial killer Samuel Little. After being convicted of multiple murders, Little confessed to killing 93 people from 1970 to 2005. The FBI confirms he was responsible for more than 60 murders and identifies him as the most prolific serial killer in United States history. Although he had a rap sheet of almost 100 pages, committed crimes in at least 24 states, and killed more than 60 people, he is virtually unknown to most people. Samuel Little, his birth name was McDowell, was born on June 7, 1940, and died on December 30, 2020. Little's mother, Bessie Mae Little, was a teenage prostitute, and his father was 19-year-old Paul McDowell. Little's mother abandoned him, and he was raised by his grandmother in Lorain, Ohio. While in kindergarten, he began fantasizing about strangling women after seeing his own teacher touch her own neck. While in junior high school, he began collecting true crime magazines that included stories about strangulation of women. Little did not do well in high school and eventually dropped out. Samuel Little's life of crime started in 1956 in Omaha, Nebraska, with juvenile offenses for breaking and entering. After being released from a juvenile detention facility, he held various jobs, including a cemetery worker and an ambulance attendant. He began traveling around to different states, where he was arrested numerous times for offenses including armed robbery, aggravated assault, attacks on government officials, driving under the influence, fraud, rape, shoplifting, and solicitation. In 1961, Little was sentenced to 3 years in prison for breaking into a furniture store in Ohio. He was released in 1964. While incarcerated, Little started boxing and later referred to himself as a former prize fighter. By 1975, Little had been arrested more than 25 times in 11 states. Despite a substantial criminal history, Little frequently evaded lengthy jail sentences by moving frequently and pleading guilty to lesser charges. Consequently, Little only served minor jail terms instead of substantial prison time. In 1982, Little was arrested in Mississippi on murder charges of a 22-year-old woman who was reported missing earlier that year, but a grand jury declined to indict him for her murder. However, while under investigation in Mississippi, Little was extradited to Florida and tried for the murder of a 26-year-old woman whose body had been found in September of 1982. Prosecution witnesses identified Little in court as a person who spent time with the murdered woman on the night before her disappearance. But due to mistrust of witnesses and their testimonies, Little was acquitted of this murder in January of 1984. Samuel Little confessed to stalking potential women victims in high crime areas and red light districts who were basically on the fringes of society. He believed these types of victims, including prostitutes, homeless, drug addicts, and poverty-stricken, would not be immediately missed, and he also thought that law enforcement would not spend much time investigating. He deliberately avoided higher-profile targets in middle and upper-class neighborhoods in an attempt to evade police detection. Little said, "I'm not going to go over there into the white neighborhood and pick out a little teenage girl. I never killed no senators or governors or fancy New York journalists, nothing like that. I stayed in the ghettos." Little's preferred method of murder was strangulation. Criminologists who have studied Little's crime spree have stated that if he would have preyed on wealthy white people, his crimes would have made national news headlines during their initial investigations, and he might have been caught a lot earlier. Finally, in 2012, Little's luck ran out as he was arrested on an outstanding drug charge. and a DNA test connected him to 3 unsolved murders from the late 1980s in California. During Little's trial, prosecutors presented the testimony of witnesses who were attacked by him at different times throughout his crime spree. In 2014, he was convicted of those murders and sentenced to life in prison without any possibility of parole, and he was incarcerated at the California State Prison in Los Angeles County. Unbelievably, Little only served 10 years of prison time prior to his 2014 guilty verdict, including 2 previous murder trials where he was actually acquitted. Although he initially claimed he was innocent of the 3 murders in California, he soon confessed to a multitude of other murders throughout 19 states, spanning from this time period of 1970 to 2005. While incarcerated, Little drew color sketches of 26 of his victims, and these sketches are still being used by cold case investigators to identify potential victims. At least one of his portraits actually solved the cold case murder in Akron, Ohio. Samuel Little was most likely the most prolific known serial killer in the history of the United States. He was convicted of 8 murders and confessed to committing a total of 93. The FBI's Violent Criminal Apprehension Program has confirmed he is linked to at least 60 murders. Little is virtually unknown in mainstream society, even though his crimes far exceed infamous and well-known serial killers, including H.H. Holmes, Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Son of Sam, Jeffrey Dahmer, Richard Ramirez, who was popularly known as the Night Stalker, the Golden State Killer, and the Green River Killer. On December 30th, 2020, Samuel Little died in a hospital in Los Angeles County, California, at the age of 80. Many have wondered if anyone felt any grief over the death of Samuel Little,